That Hotep Jesus dude. That Hotep Jesus dude.
Oh, baby. Yeah. We came with that heat today, y'all. I'm not going to bore you with any details. We're going to dive right into this conversation. You guys know this guy. This is Cyprian. Leader
Thank you for having me.
Leader of Bitcoin, the Bitcoin cult, the good kind. Creator of the Bitcoin Mystery School, the Bitcoin Guru. You don't know this man, you ain't Bitcoining, right?
I appreciate that.
Absolutely. We're going to dive into this article last night. Actually, yesterday, I saw him put out a tweet and I hit the favorite button. I said, I'm going to come back. I'm going to watch this. It's busy at the time. I said, I'm going to watch this. And he DM'd me. He said, make sure you watch it. And I said, I will. It's already on my to-do list. But he reminded me, and I was very appreciative of that reminder. So last night in the middle of the night, I turned that thing on and sat down and watched I think it was about 26 minutes this video was.
Something like that, yeah.
And I took some mental notes, and I said, you know what, tomorrow, this is going up on menoforder.com. And that's exactly what we did. I took my time this morning to take some notes. And then here we have what he calls Bitcoin's evil brother, a.k.a. Project Hamilton. Dude, when I saw Bitcoin's evil brother, hilarious. Perfect name. How'd you come up with that?
Nah, I mean, that's what it is. I think it's just, I really had the vision. It's like a bizarro Bitcoin. You know, it's just straight up as if somebody read Satoshi Nakamoto's paper and said, okay, this is great, but like, how could we use this in like the exact opposite way? So, you know, the white paper is, how can we create a system where there's no need for trusted financial institutions, no need for trusted third parties to be involved. People can go peer to peer. And it was almost like somebody said, wait, but how can I use this exact same system and centralize it to one single point of power?
Exactly.
Except use all the rest of the concepts, because all the rest of the concepts are good. Transaction, all of that. So it's like, it is an exact flip. Everything has been middle ground. There's been changes throughout the years. People have tried to fork and say, change this, change that. No one has tried to fork it and be like, let's make the most centralized version of this that we possibly could. That's the worst for the people who are actually using it. That's what this is.
Chad Lemoyne, thank you. He said, Men of Order needs men of the royal path. Y'all keep your eyes on the proper target. It's not easy, but it's not meant to be. It's worth it, though. Shout out to Chad. Chad, are we killing it? Are we killing it with menoforder.com? How sexy does this new site look? All right, let's dive into this thing here. So I begin the article off with Alex Jones was right. Alex Jones has warned us for many years about a one world digital currency which would govern our lives. It just so happens that it's not Bitcoin. It's not Bitcoin. It is potentially this thing here. So I began the article and I said, Cyprian warns us about a new project the Federal Reserve is working on. This is the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston, aka the Boston Fed. And they're working on this with MIT. MIT is like the mecca of tech as far as universities is concerned. Some of the smartest people have come out of this institution. And they call the project Project Hamilton. Okay. And I've written about Alexander Hamilton and some of his arguments. Did you want to mention anything about MIT as it relates to this project or anything like that?
Yeah. I mean, look, we talked about this as recently as our Web3 discussion that, this MIT, just for the little background on this particular project at MIT, this is coming from the MIT Digital Currency Initiative. This was launched in 2015. Basically, the line when it was launched was it was being launched to support Bitcoin developers to develop Bitcoin. So we talked about this in our last discussion where 3 Bitcoin developers, Gavin Andreessen, Vladimir Vanderland, and Corey Fields, who Corey Fields I spent some time on in this because he's the second contributor listed on this white paper for the CBDC. these three well-known Bitcoin developers in 2015 in order to get them some funding, supposedly to be able to allow them to just work on research and contributing to Bitcoin. At MIT, this digital currency initiative was established. It's part of the MIT Media Lab, which of course was scandalized during the Epstein scandal because their director, Joi Ito, had to resign because he was taking and had hidden the fact that he was taking money from Jeffrey Epstein. And in the emails regarding that money, it specifically said, this is coming from Bill Gates, but please mark it as coming from Jeffrey Epstein. And the problem was he was taking money after Epstein had already been convicted in Florida of the sex charges. So very much scandalized. If people want to just go and look up Joi Ito scandal or MIT Media Lab scandal, you can read all about it. But just important to get the context of, obviously this wasn't being created. Now we can see this wasn't being created to research Bitcoin, except to research Bitcoin to create the CBDC. So we now know, because nothing else of this level of import is coming out of this digital currency initiative, right? This is the final project that's coming out of it. And people went from the digital currency initiative straight to the Boston Fed, and they're now working at the Boston Fed. So, and we I go through that in my little presentation, but I think it's very important to talk about not just what it is, but the people involved, because after all, money is a social phenomenon. All of this is about social, and so we need to look at the people involved. But just for some background, so people understand just how nefarious this whole thing is and how long it's truly a conspiracy. There's no doubt about it. Was anybody aware of this for the last 7 years, that this is what was being worked on at a major university? Right. And so, yeah, it's important to think about that part as well.
Real fast, somebody in the chat said Cyprian the God is here. Yes, Cyprian the God is here. It was funny because I saw I had a message, a DM, and I was like, I'm not gonna check it, I'm just gonna go live. And I said, no, check it. And it was Cyprian. I said, yes, he made it. So he was like, yo, it's like 6 a.m. here. And I'm like, yo, I'll wait. I'll wait. If you need to, I'll wait. So I waited about 15 minutes. He came in. He was worried about the lighting, but the lighting looks great. Let's get back to the topic, okay? Great background there that you just gave us in regards to M.I.T. And we're going to go through the team members and the people involved in this project in just a moment. I just want to segue really fast and talk about Alexander Hamilton, because I found it quite interesting that they named this project after Alexander Hamilton partly, right? And we know it's probably 100% named after him because of who he is and what he stood for. So in my book, The Patriot Report, if you guys are unfamiliar with that body of work, I suggest you go get yourself a copy of that ASAP. Done several presentations on the Federal Reserve and the history of money. So that is essential owning and reading. So in this title called The Patriot Report, Exposing the Conspiracy of Money and War, we talk about Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution that says only Congress shall have the authority to coin and regulate the value of money. But the Constitution's verbiage is constantly up for interpretation. So I highlight how Hamilton interpreted this section on February 23rd, 1771. I'm going to go ahead and read what his interpretation is. I'll give my interpretation, and I want to see if Cyprian agrees with my interpretation, deviates, or what his thoughts are. So it says here from Alexander Hamilton, to deny that the government of the United States has sovereign power as to its declared purposes and trusts, because its power does not extend to all cases, would be equally to deny that the state governments have sovereign power in any case, because their power does not extend to every case. So the latter part of this statement, I do agree with, that the state's government's sovereign power should govern the entire state. However, it seems to me the way he's talking about this sovereign power of the federal government is that it supersedes that of the state sovereignty. Would you agree with that?
That was his position. I mean, this is the Federalist Papers. This is the argument that's trying to be made here. Hamilton was a problem. Let's just put it like that. Out of all the founding fathers, he was a big problem on a lot of levels. I certainly I don't think that the way that the Constitution is actually written, I think that anybody who reads it to say, obviously the federal government does have power over, but I think if you read it and you see that, that's a corruption of what's in there. It does seem to be, especially if you take it to, the Bill of Rights, it does seem to be saying that ultimately it's the states and then the people, and it's it's the people down, as opposed to, it's an inverted pyramid as opposed to the pyramid that we have now with the Fed at the top. So Hamilton was a problem, no doubt about that.
Yes, an absolute problem. He's a heathen. And what burned me as a so-called black man in America, they had this thing called Hamilton the play. Then they had black folks playing these roles.
Yeah.
And then they came out with a soundtrack. Alexander Hamilton, happy.
Mm-hmm.
Happy. Like this guy was some good.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wow, these people are slick. Anyway, let's continue.
A little bit of pre-programming too, don't you think? Like, I was thinking about that too, where I was like, isn't it a little bit weird that just like a couple of years, nobody cared about Alexander. Why nobody cared about Alexander Hamilton? And then just a couple of years before they're going to release basically the slavery money, they're going to name it after Alexander Hamilton. And just a couple of years before that, they've got this weird production where there's a Puerto Rican who's playing Alexander Hamilton, and it gets all of these Tony Awards, and it's hip hop. And it's like, what is going on, man? It just seems way more than coincidental to me. You know what I'm saying?
Way more than coincidental.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So Alexander Hamilton has some choice words for the rank and file. And he says here, no society could succeed which did not unite the interest and credit of rich individuals with those of the state. Now, before I continue, do you agree with that statement? No society could succeed which did not unite the interest and credit of rich individuals with those of the state. Seems a little loaded.
I mean, well, first off, he's assuming that the only societies that can succeed have the state. And then he's also assuming that the only societies that can succeed have rich individuals. I don't think either one of those is historically accurate. I'm living on an island that's had people living here continuously for 3,000 years, and the same families are still here.
Right.
They didn't have a state until the Spaniards got here. Right. And in terms of rich individuals, their entire so their sort of the watchword is I'll butcher it, but it's Inafa Maolek, which basically means like cohesion or like communal almost, but it's like everybody watching out for everybody. So and they still do it today. So it's like, rich individuals and the state. Now, I'm not saying that in the modern world we could go back to something like that, but I just think that it's historically inaccurate what he's saying.
Yeah, I think it's almost ominous, right? That he says to unite the interest and credit of the rich with the state, right? So to me, that's basically saying that the bankers should control the money supply. That's what it feels like it's being insinuated here, that the rich should tell the government how to operate its money. Okay. Chad Lemoyne says Aaron Burr did nothing wrong. Shout out to Rogan Aaron Burr. What's he talking about? I don't even know what he's talking about.
Aaron Burr and the famous duel with Alexander Hamilton.
Oh, yes. Damn.
Aaron Burr was the OG Hamilton hater.
Yes. Chad very much
funny.
knows his history. I forgot that dude's name. Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah.
So he continues. He says, all communities divide themselves into the few and the many. All communities divide themselves. I don't know if I agree with that.
He's wilding. He's just saying things as truth that it's like, it's not. That's Hamilton. Hamilton was a problem, man.
He says, the first are the rich and well-born, the other, the mass of the people. I think there is a third party here that's creating this divide. between individuals. I think, first of all, the creation of money is going to create this divide because some people are going to have access to money, some people are not. So I think the creation of money itself is probably going to be the first thing that divides people, right? Yeah. Okay, so then he says, the people are turbulent and changing. They seldom judge or determine right. And my response to that is, if you don't allow people to make mistakes with their money, they never actually learn how to manage their money. You know, it's like a child. If you don't allow them to make mistakes, they never actually learn on their own. So they need that experience. The United States, 100%. The state itself needs the ability to make mistakes so they know how to course correct it. You can't just baby people. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's get into some of the conspiracy theories here. And this is where we're going to talk about some of the team members. The one person I saw you highlight was Neha Narula. Did I say that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So she's the director of the Digital Currency Initiative at the M.I.T. Media Lab. And she's the head of Project Hamilton.
Yep.
And what's alarming about this, I believe, is that she sits on the World Economic Forum's Global Blockchain Council. Now, before we go into some of the team members, let me just tell you why I found this alarming, because I did read most of The Great Reset by Klaus Schwab and Thierry Malaret, however you say his name, Malaret. And in this section called The Fate of the US Dollar, they did talk about a cryptocurrency. And they said there are attempts to launch national digital currencies that may eventually dethrone the US dollar supremacy. And he talks about, how China could possibly dethrone the US dollar, but he insinuates that it would be a digital currency. And I feel like in some slick way, dethrone is really more like saying, the US dollar is going to become this new CBDC. What are your thoughts on that?
I absolutely agree. I think it's knowing that she is, knowing who Klaus Schwab is, okay? Knowing what he does. Like, that's the important thing, is that his whole thing is about being in the know. That's what World Economic Forum is all about. That's what Davos is all about. If anybody knows what's up, in the shadowy, smoke-filled rooms, it's Klaus Schwab. And if he's writing this book, this has been going on since 2015. There's no way that the head of this is part of the Davos crowd. She's on the World Economic Forum's Blockchain Council, and Klaus Schwab haven't had dinner together, and she hasn't told Klaus Schwab what's going on. Anybody who thinks that just doesn't even, they're willfully ignorant. Okay. So again, I think the disturbing part about this is there are people who know that this is happening and are talking to the stakeholders involved and they've got a whole other set of information. So he's got this information, and then he's talking to all of these other people and putting people together. And it's just like, I've been talking for a long time. I did back in 2016. I did a presentation up on YouTube. It's called the Ascendant Project. It's long, but one of the things in there is there's this idea of the human social cycle. We see this over and over, and this shift from like the intellectual, the priest class, to the merchant money class. And I think what we're seeing right now is potentially, and we'll talk about this as we talk about the CBDC itself. I actually see almost the end of government as we know it, the end of the state as we've known it for the last 10,000 years, and a move to the state as we understand it. Well, not 10,000 years, but certainly probably for the last at least 200, probably 200 at least. We've had a state that was basically run by the priest class. Yeah, maybe 1,000 years, maybe run by the priest class, run by the church, run by intellectuals. We have a rule of law. We've got these courts. We got, all the people involved. They're not warriors like the kings of old, right? And they're not the chiefs who were. So it kind of goes from like a commoner to a warrior to a thinker to a merchant. This is the cycle, and then it falls apart and goes back again, right? This is the idea of the cycle. It's in the tarot cards. It's in the playing cards. If you look at the suits of cards, all of this is first books of the Bible. It's over and over and over, right? So what we've had is, and we've had a government by thinkers. they wrote a constitution, and they're Ben Franklin and Thomas Jefferson, and these are thinkers. These are not warriors like the kings of old that they were displacing. So imagine now what's happening is a displacement by the merchant class, a displacement by the interests that are around business and money. So we've got big pharma and big tech are actually more powerful than the government. They're telling the government what to do in certain cases, especially over the last 2 years, right?
Yep.
They're telling the government. Wall Street has been at it for a long time, but now this is the nail in the coffin, because now they'll even be able to think of the power that they'll have over the politicians now. And we'll talk, in terms of, hey, we don't like that. You want us to just turn off your ability to ever participate in the economy again? Okay, well, you and your children, I can do it right now. One call, and you're done forever.
Yeah.
And we have plausible deniability. That's actually the system being built right now.
Right.
So yes, it's a disturbing situation.
It's interesting you use the term merchant, because that's how my book begins. I asked the question, would you rather be a merchant or a king? Would you rather be a trader or a king? And then later on in the book, after the Federal Reserve section, actually the Monetary Control Act of 1980, I mentioned, would you rather be a banker or a politician? Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the team members here associated with this project. Which ones stand out most to you? And well, before we talk about that, you mentioned this Davos thing. What is this Davos thing?
Well, Davos, where the World Economic Forum meets. So they meet. So their yearly convention, if you will.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's I guess I use that interchangeably with the World Economic Forum, just because it's a bit of a. It has been. I personally know and am friends with two people who regularly attend. One was the original investor in my company, Cointex, the first investor, the seed investor, and another is a friend of mine from Vegas, and who's oil executive. And the approach is that it's kind of like a big party for rich people at sort of the pleb level. But it's the hottest ticket in town. Everybody wants to go to Davos, Switzerland when the conference is going on and hobnob, but all the presidents and ex-presidents are there, all the power brokers, and they're not fighting with each other. They're there hanging out, having drinks, you'll just see two presidents just talking off in a corner or whatever, and like people presenting whatever it is. So yeah, it's a bit of the forbidden fruit. People want to be able to go, and it's a real show of, there was kind of like an offer from this one friend of mine was always like, oh, I should just take you to Davos. We'd have a lot of fun. Let's go to Davos, like the next time it's happening. And I'm like, this kind of
like it's Mar-a-Lago or something.
Seriously, man. Well, good point, right? Good point. It's like, it's a seat of power. And it's sort of like, let's go there and soak in power. Let's just soak around people who have power. Not my jam, man, but that's where it's going on.
They probably drinking baby blood out there.
Yeah, probably.
Pure speculation, people. Pure speculation. So about these team members involved with this project, which ones are more alarming, and what do you have to say about them?
Well, the most alarming is Corey Fields, obviously. No surprise. This is somebody that I've talked about. We talked about him. Right. And I just brought him up earlier. He's a longtime Bitcoin Core developer. For people who don't know, Bitcoin Core is it's basically Satoshi's code. So it's the continuation of the code that Satoshi Nakamoto first put out, the original Bitcoin code. And, it's had a lot of improvements over the years. There's a team that works on it, not a large team, but Corey Fields has been involved since I think about 2013 or 14. You can go back and see the code that he's contributed. He was one of the three that was first brought into the digital currency initiative, as we said. And, crazily enough, when I was going and looking for this presentation after this came out, he's been working on and contributing code to Bitcoin the whole time that he's been working on Bitcoin's evil brother, which to me is like, it's kind of sick to me, actually. Because like, I understand people need to pay the bills. I get that. Like, I get you need to pay the bills. I get that it's like, oh, I'm working at MIT, on this cool research project. As a software developer myself, I can definitely see how that would be something where you would really hold your head up high and think like, oh, I've made it. But you're also a Bitcoin developer, and you know what the Bitcoin system is meant to do. And so it's just like, it's that classic, where the scientist is doing something just because they can. It's that classic, like in a comic book or in a some sort of like sci-fi movie or whatever, like Jurassic Park. It's like, well, we're going to make these dinosaurs just because we can do it. We have the ability, we have the technology, and I'm interested in the technology. Like, that's what somebody like Corey Fields would say. I'm not really concerned about how this is going to be used. That's not really my concern. I'm interested in the technology. And it's like, no, you have a responsibility. This is how evil happens. Like, these people can't do it without you. They couldn't do it without people who had the competence to do this. Klaus Schwab ain't writing no CBDC software.
Right.
And so that's what's disturbing to me is this dude should know better. The other people involved, they don't have the sort of background of working around Bitcoiners, having respect in that community, literally going in there with Gavin Andreessen, who was the person that Satoshi handed over the keys, basically, who was like, okay, you're the new heir, as I vanish. I don't understand. That's the one to me where I can't. I get sick to my stomach even thinking about, putting myself in that situation. And I don't know how this dude's going to live with himself. It's kind of one of those Judas. It's like a Judas. He's almost like the Bitcoin Judas. Really. I mean, I hate to, I hate to cast aspersions at look, I'm not trying to be cruel to the guy, because I do understand, again, as a developer myself, I do understand it. But also I have passed up, times when it's been working for banks and things that I was principled against, where I've passed up money to do that. And I think it's just something that people need to think about, especially the young men, especially, not women as well, but young men getting into business. Not all money is good money, as we used to say back in my old life. Not all money is good money. This your soul is at stake as well. So he's by far the most worrisome. The rest of them, it's just more indicative of what it is that they were trying to build from the beginning, of what talent that they put on board.
David Zientara, thank you, appreciate you. Did you want to talk about anybody else in the team, or is that it?
I mean, there's two gentlemen. I think it's just kind of notable for people who are kind of more in the crypto scene. Kevin Kowarski and Anders Brownworth. Okay. It looks like they were sort of moving as a team from Circle. So they were both there from 2014 to 2019, and they both left in May of 2019 from Circle. Circle is a big exchange, but most notably in this case, they are the issuer and custodian of USDC, which is, let's say, the largest legit stablecoin. Their CEO has also been brought a number of times now in front of Congress. Most recently, I think December, to talk about stablecoins, advise Congress on stablecoins and whatnot. These two guys, some pretty high level individuals at Circle. Anders Brownworth, he's a little bit older. He looks to be probably in his late 40s, early 50s. He was their chief evangelist. So this is kind of like the guy who's going to go to Davos, the guy who's going to go speak at conferences and whatnot. And he is now at the Fed as the principal architect of the CBDC. One of them. And then the other guy, Kevin Kowarski, he was the manager of trading infrastructure at Circle. So it looks like he's sort of heading up the sort of the hardware and the infrastructure design, the system design for this thing. And it looks like they've been moving as a team. So these guys are kind of, Tweedledee and Tweedledum. They're both the principal architects at the Fed. So the interesting thing about this is that it's just like Corey Fields. I think Corey Fields and Neha Narula right now, if you look at that list, are the only ones still at the Digital Currency Initiative. People who are working at the Digital Currency Initiative or at other places just went from there to the Fed. So the Boston Fed has a team working there. It's not research. They've got a principal architect, the first individual, James Lovejoy. He went straight from his undergrad, which he just finished at MIT. He was researching for the Digital Currency Initiative. He's now the senior software architect for the CBDC he's the first person listed at the Boston Fed. So Boston Fed's got a team working on this. And people who've been there for a year, 2 years. So it's far along. And I think looking through the people as opposed to just the technical they all have LinkedIns. It's crazy that we can do this nowadays. It's just right out in the open.
Yeah.
When you look at this situation, you start to see how long they've been working on this and how far along they are.
Right. Hotep Boulay paid his tuition. Thank you. Appreciate you. I'm gonna go grab the baby. Can you please explain to the people what CBDC is?
Yes,
I'll be right back.
Absolutely, my pleasure. So a CBDC is an acronym for Central Bank Digital Currency. And there have been a lot of different attempts at how would this be done. I think the most important thing for people to understand about central bank digital currency and how this is different than the currency that you currently have is that this is money that has one digital, it's a digital form of money that has one location, and it's coming from, and one issuer, one custodian, not even a custodian, it's coming from out of the central bank. How that is different than the digital money that you're used to. So I talk with people about this and they say, credit cards, PayPal, all of these things, they're like, well, our money's already digital, right? It's already, everything that I use, oh, so cute, so cute. Everything that I use is already digital. But what you have to understand is what most of that is what's called commercial paper. So this is a bank, basically, it's like a check. The bank basically saying you can come and withdraw this, and it references cash. It references something on deposit. So you go to your bank, yes, you're paying with your Visa card, but you can also go to an ATM and you can actually get out of that ATM physical cash so it's redeemable for physical cash. Now, regardless of what you think about fiat money, it's the references to deposits that are in, and then you go and you deposit money in. With the CBDC, much like other cryptocurrencies, there is no deposit in. That's the most important part. There's no deposit. And it doesn't necessarily, especially as they have this system laid out, it's so opaque. There's no way to even really audit it and know that your money references anything. So you can't take this CBDC to an ATM and exchange it for cash. If you exchange it for physical cash, that's going to be an interaction that's much more like foreign exchange, like Forex. So the CBDC is actually a different currency. It's not a reference to US dollars. It's actually a different currency. And that's important for people to understand that what's being introduced is a new currency that happens to be denominated in dollars, but it's not redeemable for cash quite in the same way that, let's say, the digital dollars that you have associated with your ATM card, your Apple Pay, your Google Pay, whatever. Those are deposits in a bank. So that's the important thing for people to understand. That's the important difference. And that's really where the power is the fact that it's not redeemable for anything.
There's a couple of loaded terms here, okay? So when you look up the definition of stablecoin, they basically say it's backed by a reserve asset.
Tether isn't.
Correct.
Tether isn't.
Correct.
Yeah. Neither is DAI, by the way. Neither is DAI. Wow. That's an algorithmic stablecoin.
Okay.
So yeah, they're trying to trick you.
So So what you're saying is this would be redeemable, or the reserve asset here would be physical dollars?
Not for the CBDC.
Okay.
I'm talking about for the digital dollars that we're used to using.
Right.
We can redeem those, right? So,
but the CBDC doesn't have any reserve, so it's not technically a stable coin based upon Investopedia's definition.
Right. I mean, to call it a stable coin is wrong. I mean, it's its own thing.
Right.
Because it's issued, it's its own thing, but it is a cryptocurrency for sure. If we're going by the transactions are secured by cryptography. So it is a cryptocurrency. It's a digital cryptocurrency. You know, the closest thing that we could say is it's a stable coin, but it's its own thing for sure.
And the other thing about it is they use the word stable, right? But as they print more and more of this, which creates inflation, which actually
no, that's the other scary part about this.
Okay.
Doesn't create inflation. Because there is no asset backing it. So the only way that you could have inflation is that there has to be some asset that's backing it. So for instance, if you have this is like debasement of currency. So the idea has to be like the price is inflating against something else.
Right.
So it's like if I've got 50 pounds of wheat and I'm going to issue shares against them, and it's like 50 shares. Right. And so there's 50 shares associated with 50 pounds of wheat. So it's 1 per 1. Right. If I issue 50 more shares, now the inflation is 100%, because now it's going to take 2 shares to get, 1 piece of it. So this is actually a solution to inflation, because the inflation is about how much money is in circulation as versus how much is ostensibly on the books as reserves at the central bank. Right? This will have no inflation, and no one but the central bank, the way the system is designed, this is the scary part, can ever know how much money is actually in circulation. No one but the central bank can know. The way it's designed, their data storage is designed to be opaque.
Yeah.
So even supposedly, even they don't know. They don't know.
But what about the massive distribution of so-called money? Wouldn't that still inflate the prices of things?
I don't know. See, this is we haven't had this yet.
Right.
We haven't had this sort of experiment yet. I saw your excellent presentation on John Law, who's somebody that I am, that I'm kind of enamored with the story of John Law. I think he's one of the most interesting people around. But it's like, you look at that, and if people haven't seen it, they should go and watch it, because you did as good of a job as I've seen anybody do with that story.
Thank you.
But the idea was that, he's issuing all of these shares of the Mississippi Company, but so it's backed by this land.
Right.
The idea is that it's backed by this. Well, the land is finite, right? And so it's like you issue shares, and then whatever, and you've got a bubble and everything. But at the end of the day, the idea is still that there's something finite. It's this company, this land, whatever it is. It will be impossible. And again, it's like the price discovery on the inflation happens because someone has some information about how much money is in circulation. But in order to, and so, right now they've got the money supply. They say we've got M1, M2, M3. We have actual numbers on this. It will be impossible. They can make up numbers and no one can audit or check to see what they've said. So they can say, oh, we haven't printed any money, and yet they've printed billions. And they can do it in an instant with this system. And you can tell that it's specifically built to do this, because they make some decisions here that are, unless this was what you were trying to do, you wouldn't make those decisions. I'll give you the prime example. There's this weird thing that they do. It's by far the weirdest thing that I saw in here, where they keep so little information about your transactions that you actually, if you were to send me money, I have to actually keep not just my private keys. So it's like Bitcoin, not your keys, not your coins. But with Bitcoin, all I need is my private keys, because I can look at the blockchain, the ledger, and see, oh, how much money is in my address. Right. So anybody who's got a non-custodial Bitcoin wallet, they've got their backup phrase, they put it in, and then all of a sudden it populates. Well, what it's doing is it's looking at the ledger and saying how much money is in my wallet, right? Same at a custodial level, my online banking, all I need is my username and password, right? I don't need to, my phone can go away. I re-download the app, I use my username and password. I check the bank says, okay, here's what's on deposit. We've got a ledger of it. That's not how this works. As a matter of fact, when you send me money, you actually have to send me the transaction data, all of the data about that transaction. It has to come to me. They say it right in here that if I don't receive that, they say the sender has effectively just destroyed the coins. They say it. The sender has destroyed the money. So imagine if every time let's say you sent me Venmo, right? That you actually had to send to me, that I couldn't have my phone off and like not use it and come back a year later and check my Venmo because Venmo had it on account. No. They're not keeping any record of that. They say. Of course, they're going to track it, of course, themselves.
Right.
But the system itself doesn't keep any. And they're like, you can't look it up as a user. So if you don't keep the actual transaction data, you don't even know you can't even spend your own funds. So I have to have data. So they said, well, maybe a third party could store it for you. Maybe they've got all these things, but I'm like, why on earth would you? This sounds like a system where you hate the users because obviously people are going to lose this information.
Yeah.
Like what are you talking about? I have to, every single time any money is sent to me, and it's not a balance model. So I have to keep each transaction that's been sent. Imagine you as a business, right? You do, I don't know, 1,000 transactions in a day. You're at a grocery store.
Yeah.
Imagine if that grocery store had to keep the actual data that was being sent to Visa.
Right.
Not just you go and you check your balance at the end of the day at your bank.
Yeah.
And not just you reconcile what happened. No, not just a line item, the actual data down to the bit. It has to be precise. Otherwise, you can never spend that money. It's as good as destroyed. But it also means that no one else can ever know. No one who isn't seeing all of that data can ever know what money is in the system.
Right.
That's the system that they built. It's insane.
Which opens the door for a need for a third party, which they're probably going to present themselves and say, hey, you know that data you need to store? We have a solution for you.
Well, this is what they're going to give to the banks. So the banks who are going to play along, they're going to allow them to play this role.
Okay.
And I think they needed to do this because the biggest opponents to the CBDC are the commercial banks, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, et cetera, because this destroys their business.
Right.
This is the end of their business because there will be no depositors. Right. Everybody's account will be with the central banks. So what they're going to say is, okay, you guys move from depositing, move to be tech companies, right? And so what's going to happen? Watch, mark my words. I said it here on Hotep Jesus. People can pull this clip. What's going to happen is you're going to have an entirely new banking power structure, and it's going to be big tech. So basically, Silicon Valley will take over. Some of the banks will make the move because you're moving now to a technology company instead.
Right.
It's about data storage and transmission.
Amazon, right? Yeah.
Amazon. Well, they built this. I guarantee you this will be hosted on special infrastructure created by Amazon. 100%. Even in the white paper, they spun up the demo is done. It says it right in the white paper. It's on AWS. So why on earth would the Fed create their own infrastructure when they could just have Amazon already does government contracting?
Correct.
So I guarantee you this will be on Amazon. Of course it will.
Wow.
And then all of these third parties, somebody will get the contracts, the license. Okay, you can be a third party data storage, whatever. So some of the banks will get those.
Right. Some
of the big Wall Street brokerage houses will get those, like Chase will probably get one and some others.
Yeah.
Morgan Stanley, whatever. And then some of big tech will get it too. Like maybe Jack Dorsey, maybe that's why he's left to work on Bitcoin stuff, right? That's why he left Twitter. It seems coincidental, right? It's like, oh, I'm going to leave Twitter and change my company Square's name to Block. And then I'm going to just be all about Bitcoin. And we're just going to work on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency stuff. And it's like, okay. All right, you're doing something over there. You know what I mean? So, and then here this comes like a month later.
Right. Oh, wow.
Don't say he's not in the know. People need to understand this is coming. This is here.
Right.
It's here.
He Goes Way asks a good question. He says, how does this compare to China's digital format already in use?
China has a CBDC. I haven't looked at the technicals of China's CBDC, but the one thing that I can say is that it is effective to do what they want to do. They've got it in the hands of millions of people. There's entire cities that have been operating on their central bank digital currency for years now. These Chinese cities with a couple million people in them. The important part of China's is obviously the connection with the social credit score.
Right.
And that's got to be the next piece of this.
Mm-hmm.
They're two peas in a pod. You're not gonna, somebody who's got the power to just make the money that you have disappear with no repercussions. They've got to have some way of deciding whose money do we make disappear, and the social credit score is the logical progression. So I think ultimately, technically, I don't know if it's close. The US CBDC is probably 1,000 times better technically than China's, but does it accomplish the purpose at the end of the day? That's all anybody cares about, right?
Yeah.
And the purpose is control.
Yeah, the means has nothing to do with the ends. The Thunder Sound says CBDCs are designed to integrate with other CBDCs directly without need for intermediary settlement banks. The USD technically becomes obsolete. No?
Well, no, not to integrate with other CBDCs. So there will be separation, certainly from the US CBDC, because of the way that it's designed. No, it's not going to integrate with any others. There are some exceptions. So if we look at the construction of Nigeria, so Nigeria has already dropped their CBDC. It's called the e-Naira, and they used a blockchain. So some of these other countries are using blockchains. It's a private permission blockchain. It's Hyperledger Fabric, it's called. And the thing with Hyperledger Fabric is that you can have a federated system. And so I think that there's a chance that the experiment that will take place in Africa will actually be a federated, maybe continent-wide or regional, maybe West and East. Because it may be more than West and East, because Tanzania is also, it looks like they may try to join with Nigeria's. That could be really interesting, and it's a bit of a bridge. It's going to be more government than central banks. We're going to see probably governments try blockchain based, but now that the Fed has released this, I think the central banks will want to have their own little version. What you'll have the Bank of International Settlements doing settlements between these coins. So they'll probably have an Uber sort of ICBDC, the international, that nobody will ever see or use. It'll only be used between the central banks themselves. But no, actually the opposite. Central bank digital currencies are one point. They're not meant to integrate with other currencies. USDC, USDC will be obsolete for the most part. Stable coins in general, like open stable coins, will probably stick around. I'm very hopeful for them, and that's what I'm working on. So there is an opportunity now for some level of sovereignty. And as we see the state go away in the way that I'm describing, the new sort of nations, it'll be, what currency do you use? That's already somewhat how the world works, right? And how the world has been working. What countries use the dollar natively, like Panama just uses the dollar, and you're like, okay, well, that's obviously in the US sphere of influence. The euro, they just, they use the euro in the Eurosphere. And if you don't use the euro, you're not a European, and so I think that's been a big deal, but now it will be the whole deal. It'll be, because the power will be about the money. So the governance will be about he who is in control of the money is the ruler of that nation. So we're moving to a more virtual digital structure of it. It's interesting.
He Goes Way, thank you. He said a faction of the Fed Bank has already said social scores are coming. There was a video on YouTube with the discussion about it.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so let's dive into some of the tech here. You're saying that it can handle up to 100,000. Is it up to 100,000 transactions per second?
No, that was their minimum that they set. They set a minimum of 100,000 transactions per second as their benchmark. So it can do way more than that.
Okay. And because of Bitcoin's limited block sizes, even if we made those block sizes gigantic, only 1,000 transactions per second is estimated to be that potential. Let's dive into what, because this thing does not use blockchain, which means there's no proof of work, right?
No.
So let's dive into what are the implications of that, right? One of the things you mentioned was this thing you will not be able to audit this because there's no data. They'll try to sell it as privacy, basically destroys financial sovereignty. You go into, you say, not going to know the rules that are governing the transaction validation. And so let's talk about that.
Yep. It's, again, the decisions that they made tell you everything. I think at least they're giant signals, right? That they're making these particular decisions. The fact that they don't want to retain data, I think this is really about plausible deniability and not wanting to be audited. And it's a direct attack on the US government, because people who have been paying attention, I mean, since the days of Ron Paul, the biggest opponents, what do they want to do? Audit the Fed, audit the Fed, audit the Fed, right? So they were like, okay, when you build the system, build it so that it can't be audited. There's no reason, like from a user standpoint, if I'm building this for usability, there's no reason that I would build it the way that they've built it. It makes it so difficult. It's just they added so much complexity. And so you see, well, what is the purpose? What is the function? What are you trying to do here? And it is clearly make it so that no one can tell how much money is in circulation except for the issuer who actually issued it. So there's no way, unlike Bitcoin, unlike Ethereum, there's no block explorer, there's no nothing. And like I said, you can't tell until somebody sends money. Like you can't even tell how much money someone is holding if they don't go through this third party. And so if you have the means, billionaires, whatever, if you have the means to have your own sort of direct, there's these little things they call sentinels and watchtowers, which are these little apps that kind of have the license to pay attention when a transaction goes through and sort of listen and then tell you, oh, here's the transaction data. So first you send it up and it doesn't immediately let you know back like Bitcoin does, okay, that's been accepted. That's valid. Oh no, it goes through the entire system and then it tells it to the watchtowers. So if you don't have access to a watchtower, then you're done. Like you don't know. And so that's what the third parties will have, the watchtowers. But if you have enough clout and you have your own watchtower, you can basically do transactions that no one except the central bankers will be able to see or will even know have ever existed. It's incredible. Like when you really wrap your head around what it is that they're about to drop on people and you realize like they're about to shift all of the power into the hands of like all of the conspiracy theories. This is it, like in a technical white paper with code that works. They're giving us the code to show us this is how we enslave you. And nobody's talking about it. If you weren't talking about this, Hotep, like nobody's talking about it.
I know. I did a presentation on the Monetary Control Act of 1980, and I went to go do the keyword research, and I looked, and I'm like, wait, I'm the only one that's done a whole presentation on this thing. I'm like, do you know how important this piece of legislation is? And then
it's sad, man.
What's funny is like the other day I was talking about Joe Rogan being racist and whatnot. And I had like 600 people in here, 700 people in here. We're talking about a digital currency that's going to enslave the population. And we have a third of people in here watching. A third. It's insane what people want to pay attention to and what don't want to. The other thing that this is funny about, did you want to say something?
Nope. Go ahead, okay. Please. You're on a roll.
I always pull up this clip, Ben Bernanke versus Bernie Sanders, right? And Bernie Sanders asks him, he said, what are you guys doing with the money? And he gives him a blanket statement, says, hey, it's on the website, which is definitely not a legitimate answer, right? So he says, what'd you do with the $2 trillion? Can you tell us? And Ben Bernanke goes, well, no. The Federal Reserve chairman told the United States government, no, you can't know what we're doing with you and the taxpayers' money. And then they roll out the system and says, hey, make it so that we cannot be audited. This is amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. It's a pretty intense system. That, and again, that decision is just talked about over and over and over throughout the paper. And I think that's a big takeaway. The other big takeaway is, and this is in the code, it's even the way that the transaction structure is even more simplified than Bitcoin. Of course, because Bitcoin is created to allow people who are, let's say, adversarial to one another, people who want to steal your money, it allows you through cryptography to make sure that doesn't happen. And they have that to a certain degree here, but they're not concerned. It doesn't seem like, and as I've thought about this, there was a lot of talk that, the money's going to be super programmable. They're going to be able to program these transactions. I don't think it's going to look like that, because what they have is they've got a centralized system and they only have 3 actions. There's only 3 actions in the entire system. There's transfer, which is what the plebs will do. So that's what you will do. And that is, I sign a transaction, I send it up, and mind you, I have to send the transaction information to you, right, in the future, and then we're going to hear, one of us, hopefully, will hear back from the network and says, okay, it's valid. That's one thing. That's what most people will do. Then they have 2 other things that only they can do. One is mint. They call it mint. It's such a simple transaction. It's just basically a transaction with no inputs. Nobody sent anything, and they just put in a number, sign it, and send it, and it's done. If they have the private key, it's done. Created new funds. Boop, to any address. Boop, boop, boop. They can just do it as much as they want. And again, nobody can see. Nobody can see that this is happening. And then the other one, that's the scariest one that they didn't include in the code for good reason, is what they call redeem. And that is just basically the way that they describe it, and it's just pretty straightforward. It's the reverse of that. That basically they take some amount of, think of them as serial numbers, okay? They're transaction IDs, which is the only thing that they store in their database, so you can't connect them to anything. Basically, they take a serial number, they have these serial numbers, they put them in a transaction, and on the output of the transaction is nothing, null, and they basically destroy them. They burn them out of the database. So that's the transactions that you're holding. Right? So, and you don't even know that they've been destroyed, because remember, you can't really check. You don't really know necessarily that they've been destroyed until you go to spend it. And then all of a sudden, where is it? And there's no one to call.
Sorry, sir. Your funds have been denied.
It's not even funds have been denied. It's like, well, that doesn't even exist. That transaction never existed. Right? Because there's no history of nobody's keeping a history of the database or anything. They're looking at the time. They're like, that transaction's not even in existence. And you're like, what? And even if you were to call, it's not even like there would be somebody with a record of it, because it's just no longer in the database.
You're on a date with a girl, and the waiter comes back and he goes, yeah, sorry, sir. Your crypto wallet has been denied.
It'll be instant, because you'll just go boop and it'll say no. Nothing. Not there. You'll say, what? Not there, not there, not there. Even worse than that. So this idea that you have to receive the transaction information in order for, like, so it has to go into the system, and then you've got to receive the transaction information as the recipient. If this is the worst part. If it can get sent in, and then they just decide, well, we're just going to have it done. Don't send them the transaction information, because if you don't get the transaction information back, you didn't get the funds. They're gone. You can't spend them. You don't know they exist. They're gone. So within their own rules, they can just decide, oh no, this address is done. Anybody that sends to this address, they basically just burn their funds. And it's like so easy. It's one line of code to do that.
Wow.
A blacklist with one line of code that it says, if this comes in, just don't even make it fail. You can go ahead and say, oh, it's valid and all of this. Just don't send it out. Don't send information out to the watchtower that's going to go to the bank. You'll never know you received it. Nobody will ever be able to check because they don't know what its serial number is. You say, oh, this person sent something. Oh, we'll check the serial number. Well, we don't know what the serial number is.
Yeah. So you've got on the internet and you've said something that the powers don't like. For example, you said, hey, I'm not taking the medical experimentation. They make one phone call. BlackRock makes one phone call to their buddies, and they go, yeah, you know this guy right here? Let's remove his ability to move about the world.
That's it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yep. And at any granular level that you want as well. Any granular level. You know, right? Yeah, it's bad. It's bad.
The other thing is the transparency, right? I should say the one-way transparency, because we can't see their transactions, right? But if they have access to the watchtower, they can watch us. And then the people who have power or the connections, like you said, to the watchtower will be able to watch us, which means they'll be able to speculate based upon our transaction activity for any reason. You can, let your mind run wild with what people could do with transaction history.
Good point. I hadn't even, until you say that, I hadn't even thought of the implications for, let's say, insider trading.
Exactly.
Right. Because they basically could see the entire economy in a way that nobody else can. That sort of analytics, I mean, what you could do in terms of insider trading is incredible. I mean, they're going to know, the revenue of every company before anybody's even close to putting a report out. So you have that as well. The other thing to think about is that the terms that they use to describe these little side applications that people will be that the users interact with, both to send and to receive, sentinels and watchtowers. Like, if you need it, I mean, a watchtower is in a prison,
right?
And a sentinel is a guard at a prison,
right?
So they even use the terms of a prison, sentinel and watchtower. It's right there in the paper.
That's what they call the robots that come after you in the Matrix movie too, the Sentinels. Sentinels.
You think these tech heads at MIT don't know that the Sentinels are the machines, the squids that come after the people in the Matrix? You think they don't know that? They chose these names. Watchtower and Sentinel. They're telling you.
Yeah.
They're telling it's so wild. And the wildest part to me is that it's like, this is right. It's like, it's right here. They just put it, they're like, oh, here's the white paper. Oh, here's even the code.
Right.
Go ahead. Here, let's take a look. And everybody's like, oh, no. Joe Rogan's racist. It's like, what are you doing? At the same time that, the Canadian truckers are getting all of their GoFundMe shut and all of this. And it's like, oh, you think that's bad?
Right.
You think that's bad? Just wait till there's no answer. Just wait till nobody even knows what happened. Hey, I sent this money. Didn't you get it? No. Wait, am I on the bad list? Then you got to go and check. Eventually what it's going to be is you're going to have to go and check if you're on the bad list. People will ask for the social credit score just so they can know, hey, am I turned off or not? Yeah. People will want the social credit score.
I mean, think about it like this. You walk into an establishment now and they ask you, like, I tried to make a transaction to get a massage, right? Valentine's Day. And she told me I had to have, one of those passports, right? For the medical experimentation. So think about that, right? Like, you go somewhere and they're like, yeah, before you buy that jacket, can we check your social credit score to make sure your transactions are going to be good? Like,
oh, well, yes, the merchants will demand them.
Right.
Right. Because it's like, well, you may have these funds, but if your social credit score is too low and you send these, the Watchtower and Sentinel won't even tell me I received it. So therefore I can't spend it.
Correct.
Right. So it's like, no, let me see your social credit score first. so that I can be sure that when you said, it's just Hotep, man, you see it now, all the tinfoil hat and all of that. It's like, nope, there's a conspiracy. It's no longer a theory, because this is the logical progression of the system that they've built. All you got to do is look at the system, and then you know. There it is, tinfoil kufi. Tinfoil kufi. I think you're muted. Are you muted?
The tinfoil kufi is officially on, y'all. It is officially on. This is how far we've gotten in this conversation, y'all. I had to pull the tinfoil kufi out. Did you hear what this man just said? You as an individual, right? You think it's bad for the merchant. You as an individual are going to have to check your own mama's social credit score.
Yeah.
Mama, I don't know. I think you got banned from YouTube last week, or Twitter last week. I don't know if I could accept this birthday money from you. Can we wait till next month when your social credit score? You as an individual will have an incentive to operate with the social credit score, because how else you get your money?
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's deeper than incentive. It's like you can't work in the world without, knowing the social credit score of the people that you're dealing with. Like, it's just, you can't do it. And it's got to be constant, because it will change. Think about the society that you get out of that. Right. We've seen it. We've seen a little over the last 2 years with the bifurcation and splitting of people, the paranoia, it's just that people who otherwise would be totally fine. It's like, oh wait, you're against that thing. Like, we were having a nice conversation, but now, but you didn't take the medical experimentation. Like, now the conversation changes. Right. And so it's like, okay, yeah, you walk into a store. Before you walk into the store, they're going to be like, well, don't even come in here if your social credit score is below 73, because like, we don't even, that's too much risk for us.
As you walk in, it's just going to be like, niggas. Security guards gonna be like, excuse me, can you come with me this way?
Yeah, it's time. Let's go. Yeah.
Facial recognition is going to pick you up, and you're going to be headed right out the door.
That's it. So wild, man. And it's interesting, because we've been talking about all of these things, and there are a lot of people within our space and other spaces who have talked about, these sorts of technologies, AI, facial recognition, and all of that. The piece that they have always left out, that I've always been trying to harp to people about, is it's going to be the money system. That's the control. Like, you think the bankers are bad now? The bankers don't even have control over the money. You can get cash and put it in your safe. I've been in all cash businesses, okay? Both legit and, let's just say, a little in the gray area. But it's like, that's out the window with this.
Right.
That's out the window. And people don't understand what control really is until, no threat, no guns. I've been saying that for a long time. They'll let you keep your guns. They don't care about your guns. They'll be like, oh, you don't want to do this? We won't come to your house. We won't bother you. Just, sorry, you and your family can no longer participate in the economy anymore. Well, how will we eat? Maybe you need to give up those guns. You want to eat? I mean, I'm just saying, you know what I mean? It's guns or butter,
Right.
They're not going to take your guns. You're going to give them your guns.
Right.
This is what we have time. People who are paying attention to Hotep Jesus right now, you've got a little bit of time. What are you going to do about it? That's the question.
And I'm laughing because I don't want y'all getting scared. And we make everything fun on this channel. The thunder sound, he said, proof of work systems are getting phased out due to decarbonized economy and replaced with proof of stake systems, corporate sustainability goals. Mary Lopez, can't they ban BTC by placing restrictions through the CBDC? This would collapse the crypto market.
Well, they can't. So those two things are kind of related to one another. It's not that proof of work is being phased out. Proof of work is not going anywhere. What's happening is it's not phased out. It's the introduction of more proof of stake coins that people are doing, and mainly because it doesn't require the capital resources You don't have to get anybody to mine it. You just say, okay, we're starting this coin. It's proof of stake. Who's here at the table? Okay, you take this, you take this, you take this. Okay, we just start. It doesn't require the input. It doesn't require the work. There's no work. So you're seeing more proof of stake coins because it's easier to make it that way. Ethereum's trying to move to proof of stake, but they got to move from their proof of work to proof of stake. That's what's so hard for them. If they were just starting with proof of stake, like Avalanche and those other ones, AVAX, no problem. In terms of, yes, you definitely will be restricted from buying cryptocurrency, but not just cryptocurrency. They can restrict you from buying anything with the CBDC. Anything. So again, at a granular level, eventually it's going to look like you check out at the grocery store and it may come back and say, oh, that was declined. Are you not allowed to buy some of these things here? Like, this thing, are you not able to do that? China's social credit score has a lot like that. You can't buy a train ticket if your social credit score is too low. You can't even buy a train ticket. Right. So expect that type of thing to happen. They will definitely outlaw the buying of BTC with the CBDC. There's no question about that. But you should be trying to earn Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies by selling goods and services now. That's the one thing that they can't, and that's what it was built to do. That's the one thing that they'll never be able to eliminate. They'll never be able to eliminate, so long as we both have access to a blockchain and we both have faith in it and faith that it's running, they'll never be able to eliminate, I sell you, whatever I have, or do labor for you, or offer you some service, and you pay me in Bitcoin. That's actually the communities that do that will be the only communities that are going to survive and thrive through this. They will be the only ones not under the thumb of the CBDC. So that is actually your alternative, is to move your economic activity onto public blockchains. Will the price go down? Sure, but will you care? Probably not. The prices will get much more stable because you won't have people buying and selling in the way that they are, waiting for the prices to go up. So there's probably still another couple of runs on, the price of Bitcoin, but if you're participating in Bitcoin, take some of that as well and really invest it. Invest it in, how can I use this for buying and selling of goods and services? How can I use this in the economy? If you've got it socked away, take some of it out and learn how to use it that way. Doesn't have to be much, right? Take a couple $100 maybe. Figure out, do some transactions, buy some things from people, try to sell some things, try to set up a merchant account. Those are the types of things that will give Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies a lot of value right now. It's the way out. Right?
Yeah, it's a lot of people talk about money, right? And say, oh, these people in power, they want the money. I'm like, nah, they're actually transitioning the money into hard assets, right? Yep. We saw Bill Gates snatch up a whole bunch of land, BlackRock buy up a bunch of properties. So, when you acquire these monies or assets or whatever, you want to transition them little by little into some hard assets. Guns. Yes. I always believe in guns. I think that's, one of the most important things you can buy, especially if you're one of those doomsday preppers and you think like, oh, the grid's going to go down. Well, you better be transitioning your
definitely
Bitcoin into that metal. Yeah. But yeah, absolutely. So, other thing is the operating with Bitcoin illegally, right, or unlawfully, okay, can still be a thing, and you can still transact in Bitcoin without them knowing, if you're technically savvy, right?
Yep.
VPNs, et cetera, right? Washing your coins through wallets, et cetera, right? So I tell people, in the future, the society is going to become even more bifurcated, but it's going to be the technical savvy people that are going to be living in this underground world. 100%. And you have some people operating with CBDC, and you have some people that are still operating on the public blockchains, and it'll be kind of like unspoken about, right? Like you won't speak about it, but people will be like, hey, yo, can I buy that in Bitcoin? It'll be that type of situation.
No, I definitely agree. And I mean, you'll have that in the underground, and you'll very likely have small communities that have some amount of land, or small communities in some countries and places where it's really much more out in the open, because there will be places that don't have immediate access to CBDCs, but still have access to the internet. So this might be some things that people want to start looking at in terms of what countries might be a place for them to decamp to potentially. I think Africa, it looks like Africa, a lot of Africa, many countries in Africa, this is going to be the case. Probably South America in some places as well. Maybe Eastern Europe. We'll see. We'll see how it goes in some of those countries. Probably not so much in Asia. They'll probably, I think China's influence is going to spread with this thing. But yeah, finding those communities where you can either operate in both worlds, partially CBDC, partially these public blockchains. Obviously there's going to be a cat and mouse game, or finding some regions where it's just much more open in that way. People have got to they've got to make these decisions themselves. You're absolutely right. Technically, it's going to separate between those who have the technical savvy in this regard and those who don't.
Right. If you have the technical savvy, you'll be free.
Mm-hmm.
Like Kanye said, slavery is a choice. You know what makes me bullish on Bitcoin is the fact that the powers that be, or the oligarchs, whatever we're calling them, the lizard men, they don't trust each other. Okay.
Mm-mm.
And they know that everybody's going to be snooping at their watchtowers. So you think that they're going to get rid of Bitcoin, but no, they have an interest in Bitcoin too.
Of course. I mean, they're using physical cash.
Right.
You think that you think Bill Gates never uses physical cash? Come on, that's crazy.
Yeah.
They're using, believe me, they've got tons of physical cash.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, and it's not like those same individuals aren't participating in the international drug trade,
right?
Human smuggling,
right?
All of that. They're investing in those things. They know the cartel members, all of that. You don't think there's not representatives of the big Mexican cartels that go to Davos? Of course they do.
Right.
Of course they do. It's business,
mm-hmm.
right? And at that level, it's like it's business,
right?
So, yeah, I think that's a very, very good point. That like, it's going to. And again, it really is the bifurcation that you talk about, that it's like the elite will be the only ones who have access to this technology.
Right.
So it's like getting access to this technology is actually the way to make yourself elite.
Right.
People don't think about it that way, but it's like, no, it absolutely is. Because the elite will be operating on this system.
Connection,
right? Just like getting access to cash.
Right.
Who's the elite? Right? Are you the elite because you got the numbers in your bank account, or are you the elite because you can actually like show me the stacks?
Yeah.
Right? Like who is the more elite individual?
Right.
Right? So
with the security to guard it as well.
Well, that's the point. Yeah. Absolutely. Gotta have that.
Mm-hmm. And they got it too.
And they got it.
Johnny Spacer, thank you. Said great information. Chad Lemoyne said the real ones recognized though we're here. Shout out to Chad. Freak Max said back in 2018, my buddy worked at a mortgage company. So did I, man. That business was wild. He hit me up for a quiz he was doing, all based around CBDC. This has been in the works forever. Wow.
Yeah.
Chad Lemoyne said, man, I was afraid the Kufi was lost. It's back. Oh no, it's just Chad, like you seen how I had to like reach for it. It just wasn't highly accessible. The tinfoil Kufi goes nowhere. Trust and believe. It's just that it doesn't come out all the time. It's very special occasions. Only Cyprian can make the tinfoil Kufi come out. Mario Lopez, thank you. Said the end of cartels and all crime plus freedom. That's why the Mexican government wants their own CBDC. Mm-hmm. The end of all crime. I don't know about that. Again, I think that's what Bitcoin. They're going to hide their nefarious ways with Bitcoin, right? Mm-hmm. They'll have the CBDC for the slaves, and the people who don't believe in Bitcoin will be slaves to the CBDC. You didn't acquire any Bitcoin when we told you to sign up for Coinbits app. Let me put that on screen right now. I gotta get my grift on.
Mm-hmm. Do it.
Acquire your sats. If you didn't acquire your sats, you will be a slave to the CBDC. You will not be able to participate in the economy along with the rest of us Hoteps and the people who have participated in Bitcoin Mystery School under the tutelage of the guru Cyprian. So if you're not in now, you're going to be a slave later. But I think the crime will still exist. And I think Bitcoin will still exist, like I said before, because the oligarchs have an interest in Bitcoin because they don't trust each other. You think the guy over in China who visits Davos and the guy in Argentina who visits Davos trust each other? No, they'll hang out, but they don't trust each other.
Exactly.
They know everybody. They all spying on each other. This intelligence agency is spying on the next intelligence agency, and this government spying on that government. It goes back and forth. Like, we allow Israel to spy on us, right? It just, there's this exchange of information that always happens. They don't trust each other. Okay.
That's right.
So they're going to say some of the transactions they'll do in CBDC, but a lot of them they're going to do in Bitcoin. And I believe Bitcoin is here to stay.
I 100% agree. And Bitcoin as a concept, for sure. So whether they're on the BTC network or whether they create their own little elite network and they've got mining farms, on a volcano, on some deserted island or whatever, hey, this is something that they could do, and transmitting via satellite and whatever, right? Like, the concept is there. It's open. There's no reason anybody with capital can do it.
Right.
Anybody with capital can fork and have forked Bitcoin to have basically almost their own chain. Mm-hmm. On the note of the end of crime, it's an interesting way of saying it, but on the first page of Orwell's 1984, the picture that we get is of Winston, the protagonist, and he's sitting and he's writing in a journal. He's found a little corner where his telescreen can't see, the video can't reach into this corner,
right?
And he's writing in a journal, and it says it wasn't illegal because there were no more laws, but he was sure that if found, it would lead to certain death. And so I think that this is really what it is, that it's like the end of crime is because it's the end of the legal system. There's no more laws. It's just whatever the person in control, the elites, say is what it is what it is. There's no law saying that you can't do it. There doesn't need to be, but everybody kind of knows what you're not supposed to do.
Right.
And this was Orwell's vision, literally the first page of 1984. And I mean, there's no law about this CBDC. There's no law.
Right.
This is not brought into existence by law. No, the Federal Reserve has all the rights to do this. So
absolutely,
all this stuff about laws and courts and all of this we're past. If people don't realize that laws and courts and stuff don't matter over the last 2 years, I don't know what to tell them. But this is just the nail in the coffin on that one. On that idea, you should just lock that one away and say, "Oh, that was old. That's the old me. Let me step into the new me."
And then taxes.
Oh, they just take it. Well, the thing is that it's not. They no longer need to. The weird thing about this is they no longer need to take taxes for revenue. So what they will do is they will just be like, okay, you owe us X amount of dollars. And then they'll be like, okay, boom, we just burned X amount of dollars out of your possession. And now we minted that fresh amount of dollars. And we're just going to say, thank you for your payment. It's no more you have to cut them a check. Why cut them a check? They could just do it right now. They just take it.
Yeah.
They just take it.
Yeah.
Immediately. So they just do a burn and a mint. That keeps the same amount of money in the system, except now it went from your hands to their hands.
They could probably do it per transaction.
They could do it the rules. That's the whole thing about this. They use Satoshi's structure. So meaning they can have as many outputs as they want. So they can absolutely on every transaction be sending taxes to the government if they want.
Right.
But again, they can also cut the government off from the funds.
That's big.
Oh no, this is what people got to understand. The government is just a pleb like you now. Because governments have bank accounts.
Right. Absolutely,
right?
They do.
So,
they're corporations.
So in this case, the government, because what? They issue you a check. If you work for the government, look at your check. There's a bank name on the check. The government doesn't hold their own funds.
Right.
The government has a bank account in a commercial bank the same way that you have a bank account. Well, now they will have their private key the same way that you have your private key at the central bank. So they could just say, oh, U.S. Treasury, the money that's coming in, wait a minute. We don't like what you're doing. So you can't collect any taxes. If you want to collect taxes, you need to go along with this. And it's not even like Maybe we just don't tell you what taxes you collected.
Right.
Right. Oh, something happened. Where's this 10 this was supposed to be $10 billion. We don't know. Here, you want to audit it? There's maybe it wasn't sent. That's not really our job. We don't do that.
Maybe you need to do a better job of governing your country.
Do a better job. And why don't you come by come by the social clubs, send over this guy. We'll have a cigar and we'll talk about maybe what we could do about getting you that several billion.
Right. Right.
That's what we're moving to. That's what they've created.
Yeah. The Federal Reserve.
And here, the crazy part is of all people right now. And this is how you know we're living in a totally corrupt society. Every single politician is at threat right now. None of them are talking about this. One, they'll probably be suicided if they talk about it. But every single one of them, everything should have stopped everywhere in the world. And in the US, all lawmakers, it should have stopped and said, hold on, what is this?
Yeah.
This is a coup. They've just announced that they're about to eliminate government. They're about to be over everybody. Yeah. Stop. We have to stop this right now. Which is the exact reason why so many founding fathers were like, if you allow the bank, and I mean, this is what you've been writing about.
Right.
I mean, you're at the forefront of the spearhead of figuring out this is coming. It's like, if you allow this bank, you're going to be a slave.
Yeah.
The logical progression is slavery.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. This is where we are.
In my new book, I talk about the 3 problems with a society is participation, trust, and compliance. Right. Mm-hmm. And the big one for me is trust. Right. And that was my motivation for writing the Patriot Report, because I'm seeing people participate, and your participation needs some trust.
Yes.
So I said, let me dig up some dirt that I know y'all don't know about your country. I'm going to track it all the way back to John Law. And I tracked it back actually a little bit before him, but John Law is probably like, the genesis of corrupt fractional reserve banking. Mm-hmm. Tracked it back and said, look, this is what's going on, has been going on. This is how they used war to create debt. And then debt was the excuse for central banks. And then when you didn't want to go along with it, they deflated your currency, destroyed your economy, crippled you. Then the politicians said, okay, we'll play along. We'll pass the legislation. Stop destroying our country, right? Mm-hmm. And that was the motivation for writing the Patriot Report. You're absolutely right, man. I knew, Wu-Tang told us, cash rules everything around.
That's right.
Wu-Tang Ben told us.
That's right.
Canon Hotep said, late to the party. Welcome, Canon. Make sure y'all subscribe to Canon Hotep. All the Hotep's channels are in the description box below. Not description box, on my channel. You'll see all the different channels there. Cyprian, final thoughts on this presentation?
I mean, well, first off, I just want to say thank you for addressing this. Thank you for the great article. Everybody should go and read it if they haven't. I think your analysis and you bringing in the historical context is important. People should go and read your book, and they should be checking out the videos that you've been doing sort of as the companion to that. It's so important for people to know this stuff. And the historical context is always, always important. This is, I think, if people have been following what you've been doing, the work that's prophetic, almost prescient, really, on this topic, this is the logical conclusion of what these people have wanted to do, what this energy has been moving towards, this pattern. This is the logical conclusion. So it's like, I think I don't want people to have a lack of hope. Human beings, we're adaptable. We move through. This is not going to last forever, but it might last for generations. And the big takeaway, I think it's the big takeaway from this is you need to gain knowledge, and you can right now, knowledge and access to the same systems that the elites will be using. They will not be, sure, they'll be using the CBDC, but for the things that the Davos crew is doing, best believe there's a World Economic Forum blockchain council, okay? Maybe that's a good place to end it. We started with this director of the Digital Currency Initiative, Neha Narula. Okay. She's part of the World Economic Forum Blockchain Council. But when they built the CBDC, there's no blockchain. Okay. So for you, pleb, no blockchain. For us, world elites, blockchain and a blockchain council. Why are you not in and understanding and learning as much as you possibly can while you can about blockchain technology? They are.
Yep.
They are. The ones enslaving you are going with that. So what are you doing? It's all out in the open. Right now, it's the opportunity. The opportunity to learn about these systems won't be there forever. They're legal now, right? You can gain this knowledge now. You won't be able to do it forever. So I would say, don't wait. Don't wait.
You can learn more about blockchain and Bitcoin at a Bitcoin Mystery School. Looks like there's a special going on right now for March 4th class 229. This is the novice initiation into the Bitcoin Mystery School. This is not an affiliate promotion. I get no pay out of this. I am giving you this information because Cyprian, I believe in him and I believe in his work, and I believe this is a great course and what people need to. I think you're a trusted source for people to get educated by. You know, we can.
I appreciate that, and I mean, I do want to also emphasize it's not only is it this course, but we have now hundreds. I think we're closing in on, it's been up for a year, this course every month. We're closing in on, I think this month it'll be 300 alumni students. And so you're being registered and involved in the class. Also, you have access to our private community, which has hundreds of people in there. And I would say that's an even bigger value add, maybe than the course, if I could even, say that much, because it's a lot of people self-selected from all over the place. And I mean, that community is full of people giving updates on things. And so it's actually the first people that shared with me the link for Project Hamilton was somebody in the group who was a student. So if you want to be on the absolute forefront of this, I mean, these are the people giving me information, right? And so that's a permanent membership into that community as well. So if additional value add, I would love to have people there. I'm super passionate about delivering this knowledge and this power to people. So
I'll be there.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'll be there.
I appreciate it.
I'll be initiated into your mystery
love
school
to have
of
you.
Bitcoin.
Love to have you.
Absolutely. Chad Lemoyne said, if you want to follow Christ, go watch Cyprian's Royal Path podcast. Trust me. Absolutely.
Thanks, Chad.
I remember I had interviewed Cyprian in the past, and then one day I was at my parents' house. I think it was some holiday, maybe July 4th weekend, and I started listening to a Cyprian podcast. He had an interview. And then I was just like, wait, I need more of this. And I think I spent 6 hours listening to this guy. It's just like, there's few people I can actually listen to because nobody impresses me because I've already heard everything. But this guy is just really sound. His mind's in the right place. And I appreciate you, man. Ladies and gentlemen, Cyprian.
Thank you, Hotep.
Hey, man, thank you for doing this. And ladies and gentlemen, I love y'all. Hotep and Bill blockchain too. Hang on one moment, Cyprian, before I close out.